So what I always do is get in some TA tech stack that provides me with the right data points, and then really define them, communicate them. So what we are doing at the minute, my KPIs, I have 3 slides on the management report that comes out every month to the C-level and senior leadership. And here I really showcase what is the impact of my work through the KPIs that we have delivered. And here you can then really see what's going on, and you can find those opinions and subjective feedbacks.
Welcome to the All In Recruitment Podcast by Manatal, where we explore best practices, learnings, and trends with leaders in the recruitment space. If you like our content so far, please subscribe to our channels on YouTube and Spotify to stay tuned for our weekly episodes. I'm your host, Lydia, and joining us today is Matthias Schmeißer from emnify. Hi, Matias. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, Lydia. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. And how are you?
Good as well. On the other side of the world. I'm really excited to be here. Yeah.
Yeah, great. So, Matthias, your role in emnify is that of the Global Director of Talent Acquisition, right? So tell us a little bit about your role in emnify, Matthias. How has the past year been for you so far?
Yeah, so when I started, I had the situation where in my company, there was a perceived understanding that we don't have a really professional in-house team. There was the assumption we cannot attract the right talent, let alone hire the right talent, trust issues, no data, poor TA tech stack, hire managers literally told recruiters what to do, and not so good alignment in terms of stakeholder alignment and also biased and gut feeling based decision making. So it was literally all over the place, if you wanted to say like that. And when I came in, it was really in the situation that I got handed a couple of roles, 40 to be exact. The organization is probably 180, or at that time it was even 140, 150. So if you consider this is almost 1/3 of the company. And we needed to hire them, in particular in tech recruiting, by the way. And so because they had a huge backlog and they had always the assumption, hey, we cannot do this. So what we did is we were actually building the ship while sailing, as people might say this these days. So that means we introduced a lot of new technology. We made it more data-driven. We helped hiring managers to understand how we work and how we also attract talent, and literally succeeded with this. In the next 6 months, we really hired all the people that we wanted, and that helped us to build trust and then really focus on more strategic topics. For example, like building a new in-house TA team, working on the hiring culture to be more data-driven and less biased, trying to start coaching people on top of that, working and starting on an employer brand, right? Because that's also not happening over time. And these are things that in an overall change management process are things that I'm working on. And that was literally my first year, to say the least.
First year, and you've got infrastructure matters to solve, and you also have staffing solutions to look into. And so what did you prioritize in such a scenario? I mean, it's all over the place. Something would have had to start before the other.
I always argue it depends a little bit on the priorities of the company, right? I mean, I probably have my own priorities that I would start, but if I would stopped all hiring and just coached all people for 2 or 3 months and then continued hiring, then this would not suit the needs of the business, right? Because they wanted those roles, they needed those roles. They had not so much staffed teams, literally. And so what we focused on was purely delivery, operational recruiting, getting the roles taken care of while educating the people on the way, and really helping them to be successful. So we focused on the priorities first, and then started to facilitate and evolve as a talent acquisition team from operational recruitment into more value add kind of approach of, hey, we are not just filling seats or putting bumps on the seat. We're actually also there for building brand. We're actually there for coaching and advising the business and create a kind of talent advisory on the way.
It's interesting because there's the coaching element also comes into it. That's a long process, right? You also need to manage stakeholders in this sense, manage time, and also plenty of different expectations that might come along the way. So in terms of implementing those initiatives, how long did it take in that period of 1 year after you completed or while you were going on with the delivery?
So we are just about to launch a new hiring and interviewer training based of course of our findings, where we want to transition into scale-based hiring. If you imagine yourself, you have a low mature hiring culture and everybody just looks at the pedigree recruiting, as they say, right? So how long has this person worked? Which company have they worked for? Which industry are they from, right? And these are all biases that, first of all, don't predict future job performance, what you should actually aim for when you hire. But at the same time, you let people alone with their biases, which then leads to bad hires. And this transition, to start this, is just the first step that you should do in talent acquisition, because if you have a skill-based approach, you get automatically rid of, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but rid of resumes. You get looking at data, because you probably assess certain skills that are not just out of interviews. Yeah. I think also what I see and what we have done a little bit along the way, and now we start strategic. So what we start doing is actually doing a functional assessment, as I call it, which means it could be a case study, a presentation, scenario-based interviews, where we don't tell candidates, look, you don't need to prepare anything, but these are scenarios on your day-to-day, right? And I want to understand, if I hire somebody, how you solve problems and what your thought process is. These are the main topics, because in the end of the day, we know this. I'm not always there as their leader. We cannot always watch people, especially in a remote setup, right? There needs to be a certain autonomy. And so we need to trust people to solve the problems, and I need to understand how they solve it. Do they jump to conclusions? Do they ask the right questions? Do they get to the root cause of a problem? These are things that are very important to me. And that actually shows me a little bit more of the traits that people have. And then you get to the real interesting personality type of what we actually need. While when you just have conversation, I don't want to hire the best interviewee, right? And the people who can answer questions in the best way. I want to actually see if they understand how to work with data, how to do certain approaches, to analyze as well. Depend a little bit on the profile that we hire, right? And this is something that I found very, very interesting.
And this approach to talent acquisition, has it changed over the years? You've been in TA for some years now, right, Matias? So pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, during the pandemic, has anything changed for you?
Yeah, I think it depends a little bit where you hire, right? For me in tech, it always has been remote. I think the biggest shift that we've seen is a little bit, how do you help hire managers to become better? Coach them more. There's always the assumption that we believe hiring managers know what they need to do, but hiring is not their key area, right? They have other things to do in the business. So I put more focus on in order to help them to be successful. Also, hiring managers are playing a huge role in engaging candidates, convincing candidates. Candidates do not decide on the company. Candidates decide on the leader that they will work with or the team. So if they don't do a good job in this or don't know how to engage, then this is really a problem. So always talk about like talent champions, so to speak. And what is also something that has, of course, disrupted our space in the last 6 months is, I would argue, skill-based hiring and AI. Yeah. So I had a huge discussion on tech recruitment, how AI influences tech recruitment. And I think, first of all, companies who want to always fight AI on their tech assessments, that's a very reactive approach. So either look at the skills of how can somebody work with AI and assess their prompt engineering skills and actually see how in their day-to-day solve problems with AI, which is much more interesting than always see and say, oh, have they produced an outcome with AI? And oh, then it's not worth it, right? I think this is something where people also need to understand and change a little bit their assessment approach, especially with tech talent, because even TA, like talent acquisition people, they start using it, they start working with it, and it's good to understand how they use it, because what we can learn in AI, it's a little bit like interviewing. If you understand how to prompt better, or if you understand how you ask the right questions, you will be successful. But if you don't know how to do this well, you're not getting the outcome that you're aiming for.
AI being front and center this year has, it has taken up a lot of the attention to technology. A lot of the job scopes have changed, as you said, right? Prompt engineering is one of those things that have come into play. And that is, would you define that as a skill, or would you define that as a full role for someone? Or would that be both?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I've seen those prompt engineering roles popping up as well. But in the end of the day, I would consider it a skill, because prompt engineering is not tied to engineering. Yeah, you can learn about prompt engineering also as somebody with no engineering background, right? And a lot of people, when it comes to copywriting, when it comes to, even these days, can create PowerPoint solutions, or you do market research, or you try to understand who are the successful companies that I need to learn about, or certain roles, job descriptions. Yeah, in the end of the day, the prompt is good if you know how to do it. It's the first way, but you need to have that critical thinking approach as well. So then you combine another skill, saying, look, is that really something that hits home or not? Yeah, because so many times I felt during this hype of AI, everybody believed that everything I put in there and every outcome that I get is actually fantastic, because yes, there's common sense and it sounds logic, but everyone that you see that has more experience and is very well versed in a certain area of expertise, they would probably say, yeah, almost there, but not yet, right? And this is where then the follow-up starts. It's literally like if you ask a question to somebody, an open-ended question in an interview, sometimes that person is providing a really good answer, but then you want to dig deeper, follow up, and really understand it to get what you want, right?
Yeah, and in terms of using AI on a day-to-day basis for a talent acquisition team, we'll get back to that question later. But how has the usage of AI really disrupted tech recruitment? Really, I'm not sure if you actually cover that part, but in terms of its implementation or integration into tech recruitment processes, has that changed the process itself?
Yeah, well, yes, 100%. But I think, let me start here, is when you do tech assessments, around the world, you have a couple of different approaches. One is the coding challenge that everybody knows. It's a top funnel solution. So you say, look, I am a big company, I have 300 applications, and I just want to make sure that the person or the key programming language I need, or that skill and coding skill that I need, is covered to a certain extent. And then you have a cutoff score, and then you understand that, hey, these are my 5 or 10 candidates I talk to first. Yeah, let's put it like this. It's a filtering mechanism. Now, these coding challenges are very much under threat, because everybody with AI or, Copilot or whatever you use can get a result quickly. Yeah. Now, what people do, if let's say you do those tests manually, you produce this on your own, you don't have a tool there, then you never know, is this an AI result or is this a human being? Yeah. So there's a huge risk of fraud or cheating. Let's put it like this. If you have an advanced tool, then what those tools do, they actually tell you, hey, wait a minute, the AI was involved. Yeah. So they kind of flag it. But again, this approach is very reactive, because we are chasing our tails here, because, is this AI? Oh, that's a new function. Oh, they can do something new. So I need an update, and then I need to flag it again, and so on and so on. Mm-hmm. So what I'm trying to say here is, people need to think hardly about their coding challenges and maybe say, we maybe use a completely different approach. And one of the approaches could be pair programming. Pair programming is you sit down with people, you solve problems. And this is what I meant with the functional assessment earlier on other roles. This way of collaborating with people on solving problems together and understanding a little bit, not just why you do the things you do with code, but what are you actually solving for? What is the problem here? How can you bridge this is much, much more important. And one last sentence to this. It will also add the social skill perspective. Yeah, because so many times in tech recruiting, I have seen that people look 80 or 90% of the time on technical skills, not on social skills. And we know by academia and other research that social skills make you successful in your career. It's not just your technical skills or your functional skills.
And moving on to HR technology, in fact, and the kind of technology that talent acquisition teams would use. There's a survey that showed that 58% of companies use HR technology to find, attract, and retain top talent. So what would you say might be, perhaps the top 3 HR tech trends in the near future?
So I think one of the trends that you already have seen is that everybody jumped on that train with AI, right? So that means a lot of HR technologies have their own talent share GPT or HR GPT or whatever version they have. So you will find useful AI gadgets that, for example, we use Hi People. It's an assessment platform. And when you put the job description in, it automatically through AI leads you to the right assessments, social skills, hard skills, right? So you have an opportunity here to make things easier for you and use them better. But that's not the only AI topic, but this is in general a trend that I see, and you will probably see more coming to reduce administrative work and actually help people to quickly use tools more seamless in that sense. So that's one. But then I would also say what I see now and what we are doing as well is it probably shifts a little bit from sourcing. Sourcing has always been big, but I see assessments in general being much more on the center of the development because of the skill movement, because of the quality per hire. Everybody wants to hire quality people, right? But nobody knows what quality means. Nobody knows what a high performance means, right? But those assessment tools that help you to identify the right skills is a big one, right? And then I would also look in the topic of what I'm actually doing. My scope is not just talent acquisition and employer branding, but also onboarding. And what we are doing there is really focusing and automating onboarding to say, how do we keep the engagement? Why is this so important? To just give you a little bit perspective of how the German market works. Those notice periods are 3 months, sometimes even 6 months. So it really, once we hire somebody and when that person starts, there is a huge gap, right? And so rather a slow moving market in that perception. And that means you need to have that engagement. You need to get involved. You need to understand, hey, this is what's happening when we started. And we have seen when the competition was really high, remember the last 2 years when everybody was hiring like crazy, really keeping people engaged. And a lot of people lost their hires before they actually started because there was a lack of engagement. And so why do not optimize that? I think we need to start looking a little bit more holistically at every different angle of our journey, and probably also smaller startups will try to figure out what kind of tools do I have that cover multiple things. Because I don't want a tool for candidate experience. I don't want a tool for big data or ATS for employer branding, onboarding, and so on, right? It gets so messy and so clunky at the same time. So whatever you find in the market that covers a lot of different dimensions is probably something that we will see in the future. Also, last note on that, the market is similar to the market in the world, consolidating. So you see a lot of HR tech solutions being bought by bigger ones in order to create that one solution.
Right. In building out these different functions that you have been overseeing and also developing, in building out these functions, you would also need to develop sort of a comprehensive recruitment strategies that not only fulfill business needs now, but also to look into the future. So what might be some ways that talent acquisition professionals could think about perhaps future-proofing their recruitment strategy?
Yeah, 100%. I think one of the things that is something that you definitely need to start doing is connect it to business outcome, connected to the business strategy. Every recruitment strategy that is disconnected from the business and business outcomes is useless. Yeah. So, and that's something where sometimes in smaller startups, we struggle because there is no really company strategy because the runway is very short. We keep on surviving, right? But nobody has thought this through. Then there's maybe also not a people strategy, right? So how do you then build a recruitment or TA strategy if all of the other strategies don't exist? But what I would always do is I would talk to the C-level, establish this relationship to the C-level and say, what is important for you? What do you want me to fix? And so we had this assumption when I started that we said, there was the assumption we cannot attract the right talents. In the end, it turns out it was not attracting the right talents that was the problem. It was assessing and identifying the right talents. That was more of a problem. Yeah. So here really saying, what is it that you want me to fix? What is your key problem? What keeps you up at night? And then if you understand what your pain points of the business are, then you really help build this and create a strategy, a vision around this and execute this. And last topic on this is also as well is sometimes I see a lot of times people changing strategies too fast because they always believe, okay, the strategy didn't work. No, think about it. It could be the execution and not so much the strategy. Yeah. So disconnect one of the other, because so many times I've seen poorly executed strategies where the strategy was okay, but actually the execution was the problem. So it's always about the how. How do we do things? Yeah. If we have the why, then we need to look at the how.
And how does data play into this changing of strategies? And at what point do you tweak the entire thing or just change a tactic, for instance?
Yeah, it's really important. Yeah, so obviously, this was also one of the topics that I suffered from. So what I did is, of course, you can build BI data dashboards on your own if you have the expertise in the organization, but that takes longer. That's not a quick fix. So what I always do is get in some TA tech stack that provides me with the right data points, and then really define them, communicate them. So what we are doing at the minute, my KPIs, I have 3 slides on the management report that comes out every month to the C-level and senior leadership. And here I really showcase what is the impact of my work through the KPIs that we have delivered. And here you can then really see what's going on, and you can find those opinions and subjective feedbacks. And to your last question, what you said is like, how do you change? When do you change? I'm always a huge fan of experience-driven KPIs, right? In the end of the day, it's an onboarding experience, it's a candidate experience. So for me, it's not so much how much do we actually hire in terms of numbers, but how we do it is much more important. And therefore, you need those KPIs. So when you say, and you start in candidate experience, then you probably start off with -30, -40 as an EMPS. But then you develop over time, and then you need to also understand benchmarks, global benchmarks. So the global benchmark at the minute for candidate experience is -1, somehow on that end. And so you kind of get an understanding, how do we get there? How do we consistently work on our messaging? Do we have candidate decks? Do we have videos? How do we prepare people? Because you have lots of different drivers, and then you really need to work with the data to actually turn things around, right? And I think this is something where if you are an experienced talent leader, you have your KPIs and you see where you are, you have an understanding, okay, that's the status quo. And now every work we do, we can track that. We have the data, and this gives us the right opportunity. And I think this is where last sentence here as well is, what is the value that you want to create to an organization? If you have that understanding, what your value is, then you can align the KPIs accordingly to this, and then it will help you to actually share that understanding how your impact reflects in the organization.
Now, in terms of achieving those KPIs using AI, for instance, in talent acquisition teams, we've seen widespread adoption. As you said, there's a hype. The past 6 months alone has shown the results of the usage of AI and exactly what you need to have in terms of skills to be able to get the best outcome from AI. How do you think talent acquisition professionals can actually benefit and get the most out of AI in their day-to-day, in their strategies, and also in their forecasts and planning?
Yeah. One of the things that it's generally a problem with TA people, right, is because we always have less time and there's lots of work to do, right? And so what that means is that we have less time to say, oh, how do I actually work on my outreach messages? When do I have time to think about a job description? Or how do I have a communication plan to my hiring, right? And so taking time and thinking this through from a journey perspective of like, okay, what do I want my people to see firsthand when they apply? Do I tell them, first of all, when I come back to them? Do I tell them about the company more, the recruitment process more, what can be expected? And then really making sure you fix those templates, because then you can automate this. And by fixing those templates, I mean, you can use AI and say, look, I feel like I want to convince somebody, I want to reach out to someone. How do I do this in a meaningful way? How can I create those templates? Because that takes time, right? Similar thing, give you another example, intake meetings. Mm-hmm. Do you have a structured intake meetings? A lot of people wonder why they have a problem of filling a role. It really, really starts in the very beginning of planning, listening. What is the right intake? What do we want to get out of this? How do we make a decision in the end? What is our assessment approach? That's sometimes skipped or not talked about, or talked about while we roll, right? Mm-hmm. So now we have 5 candidates. Now let's think what happened next. That's never a good advice. So my experience is always do your homework in the beginning and help hiring managers to figure out what are the right questions, standardize it, but also say, look, these are questions. What is your leadership skill? What is your skill gap analysis of your team? Why are we doing this? So what we are doing at the minute, we do business cases. Mm-hmm. So every hiring request, the leader needs to write a business case to validate if this hire has actually an impact to their objective, business objective, and the strategic goals of the company. If there is no correlation, then this is not going to work. Yeah. And I think this is something where you can already see you need to put a lot of work up front in order to be then faster in the end. And this is where AI can help. What is a right business case? We always say a one-pager, but there are probably different ways, right? How do you build such a case? Yeah. How do you help people to also in sourcing? I think in sourcing has great potential. We see this with LinkedIn at the minute. LinkedIn is actually helping you to automate your outreach messages, based on that. So these are all things when you have a sourcing approach of multiple touch points, not just, hey, I reach out and then I never follow up on that candidate. It's literally like, how do you do this in a meaningful way so that people actually find this very engaging and intriguing?
It's interesting that there is an emphasis on having hiring managers present their business case for every hire, right? So how was that communicated, or rather, how was that implemented in terms of stakeholder management?
Yeah, 100%. I think we are at the minute, and this is typical for startups, most of the startups have headcount plans, but not workforce plans. And there is a difference, right? So headcount plans mean literally I give you the roles, and then based on the roles, that's what you need to hire for. Now you can imagine that sometimes revenue growth doesn't turn out the way it should be, or there are other obstacles. And so how do you deal with this? And so for that reason, you can, as an organization, understand and say, look, if we maybe not replace every role, right, that reduces cost. Or if we say, look, why do we actually need a team for this? Is there maybe an opportunity to say, I don't want to hire somebody, but I maybe invest in the existing people, give them maybe an increase and fix that problem this way, or reprioritize my work. This will help us to be a more productive and a more outcome-oriented or performing company. And these are easy things, but per default, we all just say, oh, I need a hire and I need a full-time hire. But we don't think about interim managers. We don't think about freelancers. We don't think about maybe part-time roles, right? And so there is a huge amount of opportunities on how can we actually answer this request or this opportunity here. And this is where we want people to start thinking a little bit more mindful about what is actually the right solution for you and your team right now.
Now, going back to eliminating bias in the hiring process, right? You need diversity is a big aspect of recruitment today, especially in the past few years already. We're already seeing that emphasis, and it's great to see the changes taking place right now. So what might be some factors that TA leaders or heads of recruitment teams should think about when they structure a diverse team of recruiters?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would always argue when you set up your team, hire a diverse recruitment team. It would not make any sense if I just say, oh, I work for a German company and all of my recruiters are Germans. That's not going to work, especially for us. We are a global company. That means we need this global footprint in this recruitment team. So at the moment, it's very funny. I'm located in Berlin, Germany, but I have no one in Berlin in my team. So I have people from Poland, Romania, the UK, even America. So really, really all over the place. But that gives me the opportunity because I have a diversity of thought, diverse backgrounds, and diverse skills. And that is something that is very unique, where once you start this, it sounds very obvious, but once you have this, then you can really create that high performance culture, because with this high performance culture, if everyone leverage their skills, and that's a leadership task, right? It's a leadership task of creating a safe space, inclusive culture, a speak up culture, a learning opportunity for everyone, learn with the team together, give them the opportunity to say, look, I can always reach out to you if I have a question. This is kind of a cultural thing, the psychological safety. And then this will help you to facilitate this further, to then say, my team will have impact, will have an opportunity to perform because I can discuss everything with them. We are open here. We are in this together. And literally, as a leader, I am judged by the performance of my team, nothing else, right? And if they are successful, I am successful, right? And so I think this is something that I would keep in mind in order to build the opportunity here. And then as a next step, when it comes to the business, I think here is really coaching and trainings. You cannot get rid of them, right? I think you need to do them, and you need to have an iterative approach. Don't just say you once finished this and then you never touch it again, right? So they need an iteration. There need to be certain elements of this. And then I think it's also the skill-based approach, right? Because in the end of the day, if it's all about what kind of skills you have, it's not so much about where you're coming from, what industry have you been in? What company have you been in? And I think these are things that I always tend to see, that people have this, oh, she works at Google. Oh, he has worked at Netflix. They must be good. No surprise. Also, these companies don't have per default all the best employees. So these biases we need to tackle. And the more we talk about it and the more we showcase hiring managers how to tackle this, then this is one way. And I think the other way is, of course, we need to understand that we cannot unbias human beings. So let's not be naive and say, oh, if you run through 7 or 8 different trainings, you are not biased. We all are biased, and we need to learn how to deal with biases in the workplace to make the most objective decisions. And by that, I would mean multiple people involved in the process, having a good debrief, having a good decision-making structure, having good interview rubrics. These are all opportunities to help you to get less bias.
And that culture element, that culture piece tends to sit heavily in the employer branding structure that you're currently building, right, Matthias? So what might be the role of employer branding to attract and even retain candidates today?
Yeah, it's a good point. Look, I feel employer branding is super important. And so many people don't prioritize this from the get-go, right? Because a good employer brand probably takes 2 to 3 years, depending on the size of your company. But it's a mid to long-term project. And what I've seen in the market is that because of that rush and that need to hire, that a lot of people build that from the outside in. So we built something where a lot of applicants came in, we had a lot of traffic, and we literally also then kind of risked a great candidate experience because we cannot handle all of the people at the same time, right? So my advice here is build the employer brand from the inside out. Start really to get this pride from people to, hey, this is good. This is what other people are doing. Do kind of like, we call this people spotlights, right? So do this, focus on internal communication, make sure people get comfortable with that brand. And then from that, you have the authenticity to then say, look, they identify already because with the work that we did, and then we start going outside. Because in the end of the day, I would argue the measure of success for employer brand is quality of applications, not quantity. Yeah. And if you build an employer brand, you always will exclude. Like, think about it with personas. You create a persona. That does not mean it fits for everybody. Employer brand should never fit for everybody. It is always for a certain target group that we actually design this, because they are relevant and they are most likely to succeed. Yeah. And I think this is really important. And what I have seen in the past is that we just put diverse people on pictures because we know then diverse people apply, but then the culture and the company is not diverse at all. And I think this is what I want to, pay close attention to. Don't create those fake images. Don't pretend to be somebody or some company that you are not, because that will never be successful, and it will create a lot of tension and friction in this.
Given all the things that we just talked about, all the points that you raised about the challenges in startup and the technology coming our way, and even looking forward to the future, what advice would you give someone starting out in recruitment today with you?
Yeah, it's a good one. I think for me, they need to be open-minded and curious. This is really the first thing. It has nothing to do where you're from, what kind of background you have. If you are interested in what people have to say, that is really the starting point where you can learn, where you be open. Our profession at the minute does not have a degree or does not have certain courses that you can do and then you know it all. Our profession develops that quickly that you need to learn on the job, and you need to probably start in a bigger team to kind of understand, get some structures in place, get familiar with policies. And this is something where you have probably a good playground to start. And then from there, I think it really, really depends, where do you want to go, right? I think what I underestimated, and I've been in tech recruiting my whole career, is that sometimes I'd be like, yeah, commercial recruitment, that's easy, right? But now we see, especially also in the bull market, it's also very challenging. It's not easier, right? In that sense, yeah. So what I'm trying to say here is really have this curiosity, open-mindedness, willing to learn, and always to iterate on your approaches, and that will bring you or make you successful very fast, I guess.
Well, thank you very much, Matthias, for your time and your insights. I particularly enjoyed the way in which you approach organizing or structuring a department that previously had no real direction, and structuring that for the long term, especially in a startup environment in which you have to look for many niche talent, and you're also looking at AI coming into play to possibly make it easier for you, but also that growing pain of adopting everything. So thanks so much for your time and your insights, Matthias. If our audience wants to connect with you, where can they find you?
Yes, LinkedIn preferably. I'm quite active there. And just reach out to me, send me a message or willingness to connect. LinkedIn is, I always say, my second inbox. So it's probably sometimes I'm faster there than in my real inbox, but don't tell anyone.
You just did. Well, thank you so much, Matthias. It's been fun having you on the show. And we have been in conversation with Matthias Schmeißer from emnify. Thank you for joining us this week. And remember to subscribe to keep up with new weekly episodes of All In Recruitment.